I think I've got the workaround. Has anybody tried one just to make sure that it is workable? Okay, thank you. Alrighty, so post-test for chapters 7 and 8, there was only one question that said it was a medium level of difficulty, and that question was, which is a gastrointestinal virus? And it gave you some choices. I think 13 of you got it right, so it wasn't like it was a huge miss. But the answer there was rotavirus. And then other GI viruses are the norovirus and the astrovirus, but they're distinguished from enteroviruses. Remember, those are the ones that can enter the GI tract, but they don't, you know, there's no shenanigans with the GI tract. They use that as their portal of entry, but then they attack other systems, right? They have an affinity for other things like the nervous system or whatever the case may be. All right? Questions about that? Okay. So for the review of chapters 9 and 10, anything jump out at you? Let me find my papers. Anything jump out? My paper session. Anything you found truly mind-blowing? No?
Yeah, just trying to find it. There's a couple of things that were fascinating to me, but I made a note in my book trying to find it.
Okay. Ian says the distinction of ignored diseases, like those neglected diseases that were towards the end of the chapter. Yeah, isn't that crazy? And there's quite a few that are in the United States, right? That's pretty crazy. Neglected tropical diseases and then neglected parasitic infections in the US. Yeah, that's crazy.
Sorry, weird thing that I heard at one point too is that as far as like the parasites are concerned, like the flatworms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Some people were using it as a weight loss program.
Right? Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, I found interferons to be interesting. On page 129. I thought that was, I don't know. You know, they're not pathogen specific, but, you know, the protein that's produced. So I don't know. I just find our own personal defense system interesting and fascinating. I don't think a lot of people realize how lucky they are when they don't have any complications with their own immune system.
For sure. There's, you know, we're bombarded every day with things that our immune system, just like our non-specific defenses, just take care of, right? Our skin, our respiratory system, our phlegm, all kinds of fun stuff. One stomach virus away from my ideal weight. Take some X-Lax too, Ian. That helps with the water weight. So you can get into your prom dress. You guys are sick. You got sick sense of humors. Magnesium citrate. Oh man. All right, well, I'm in good company. I know that. My dog agrees. I'm not sure what she's barking at. Okay, what else? Let's see. I gotta look at the chat. Giardia, yeah. For sure. What caught your eye about that? Oh. Yeah. I can't remember if it's a parasite or some sort of microbe, the floweri or whatever, and it lives in like lakes and stuff like that. And I was watching The Resident and this lady was having these symptoms, whatever, and they had mentioned she had been swimming in the lake, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, I know what she has. I know what she has. I'm like, she has that thing that's like in the lake, that flower eye or whatever. And yeah, that's what she had. I was like, man, see, we can be doctors. We can be doctors. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yep. Kind of helps us put the pieces together, huh? Oh boy. Okay. Yeah. What else? Any other takeaways? I was just, oh, you gotta go get him? You gotta go? Okay. The protective mechanisms that bacteria and virus have, I thought was pretty crazy too. One thing that I thought we could have a discussion about is, and I stole this out of my PowerPoint as I was making the recording, just a discussion about how our lives would change, or how our lives are changed when we find out that we're some sort of reservoir, right? Pathogen reservoir. And so the book talks about 5 different types, and I thought maybe we could just have a discussion about how our lives would change or are changed when we are in one of those 5 situations. And so the first one is a human carrier. And so if we look at the text on page 120, it says human carriers are individuals who carry the pathogen but are asymptomatic. And we hear that a lot with the COVID virus, right? There's a lot of people that carry it. They don't even know that they're carrying it. We've probably all been exposed at this point and don't even know it. So what if you gain the awareness that you are a human carrier? How does that change your life, or how would it change your life? What do you guys think?
I just assume it would actually be a burden almost, because now you have to assume responsibility for the potential of, causing harm. So, I think all of a sudden you have to be more aware of what your behaviors are and where you are and how you interact with other people. I mean, especially if you're in, the OR, how does that now affect everything? So I don't know. I think that would become a burden, truly.
For sure. Especially if that never goes away. Like, you have that forever, right? And you're forever a carrier.
Yeah, like Typhoid Mary.
Absolutely. Yep.
Ian, dang it.
Typhoid Tammy.
Okay. All right.
Let me see the other comments. Ian said I would re-examine every interaction I had with anyone. Yeah. And so do you think that you would like start telling people like that are close to you or that you meet or whatever, like, like where does that come in at? Do you have to tell your work? Do you have, those kinds of things, I wonder as well.
That's a difficult situation. And I think some of it is dependent on what it is, and what you're looking at. I mean, there are people with STDs that don't tell people, and that's obviously wrong, and they still have it, and it complicates. So if it depends on what it is, how it's passed, and what the situation is. But like Rainey said, you do have a responsibility. And, for some people, ignorance is bliss, but unfortunately for others, it is not.
Yeah. One of the things that is, I don't know, I guess you can use the word concern, which is why we use universal precautions, but individuals that we operate on, they do not have to disclose if they have Hep C or HIV, and they can deny any type of testing for it as well. So, you know, I've heard conversations of other surge techs that are like, well, I always look in the patient's chart to see what they have. And I'm like, but what about what the chart doesn't say? Because you don't have to disclose. Yeah, you don't have to disclose HIV, Hep C. And so that's why we have to assume that everybody has something that we don't want to get from them because of that. Like the chart might not show everything. And so we, you know, have to be really diligent about protecting ourselves and each other, which we've talked about many times. But I was surprised to learn that fact. I didn't, it wasn't that long ago that I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of it. So yeah. For sure. Anybody else got any takes? Okay. Take out your doggy. What about the next one is incubatory carrier. So an incubatory carrier is capable of transmitting the pathogen during incubation. So the period between contracting it and actually being symptomatic is that incubation period. It's cooking, right? Bacteria are dividing or viruses are multiplying, whatever the case may be. We're not sick yet, so we don't know that we have it. Kind of pretty much the same thing, huh? As far as maybe similar to human carrier, what do you guys think? Because like HIV has a 7 to 10 year like incubation period, like where you could have no idea that you have it. So do we become crazy loons and go get tested for everything under the sun every 6 months or every year? Or what do you guys think?
Probably.
No opinions? Yeah, I agree, Ian. Personal responsibility, that's a big one, right? Mm-hmm. Yep, Ariana, I agree. Yeah, the HIV thing, right? That was really scary. That was a lot more serious when we had no idea about it and we didn't know how to treat it. But at least now we have ways that we can treat it. We can't cure it. I still don't want it just because there's some way that we can treat it for years and years, you know, but my cousin, my older cousin, he has HIV and he's had it for quite a while. And he pretty much hides inside and doesn't get into contact with a lot of people, especially people he doesn't know, because you know, his antibiotics will work for a while and then they won't. And then his immune system is more compromised. And if he gets sick, that could be the end, right? And with this COVID thing, he's like a cat on a hot tin roof, you know? And then I have my other cousin, she and her husband have 4 kiddos, I think, and they sold everything they owned. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and moved to Ethiopia and worked in the orphanages there for 2 years. That was their plan, 2 years. Just shy of 2 years, both of their girls got Lyme disease. And so they came home, and she's the same way with them. Like, she doesn't take them. She's like, I don't take them anywhere. Like, she's homeschooled them. She's a school teacher by trade. So when the girls were old enough to be, homeschooled, she stayed home with them, and she's been doing that ever since. But she's like, I'm just so scared because it's, now their immune system is compromised. So yeah.
I think kind of like Ariana said, you take into consideration the exposure, and, maybe if you have certain behaviors, either traveling outside the country or, certain behaviors that expose you to different things that lie dormant like that for that amount of time, then maybe you would want to be having that testing done on more of a regular basis.
Right. Or if you work in the OR and there's an incident where you have, like, you get a stick or a poke or something like that, then, making sure that we have that sense of responsibility, like Ian said, to do our due diligence to get checked and, follow the protocols, for ourselves and for, our patients or whatever.
Well, for ourselves, our patients, as well as anybody that we come home to.
Mm-hmm.
You think about that as well. I mean, yeah, we need to do the best to protect ourselves. We need to do the best to protect our patients, absolutely, and our family.
Mm-hmm. For sure. My mom, she puts herself, and she is in a higher risk category if she were to get COVID, because she has, kidney disease, she has heart disease, she has these other things, diabetes. And so she pretty much won't let my stepdad, like, come near her. She's like, stay away from me. Don't touch me, don't kiss me, nothing. Like, I am not getting sick, because he still goes to work and he does the grocery shopping and he goes out into the world. And she's like, don't even get near me. Like, I don't want to take the risk of getting sick. Like, well, can understand that. So, let's see, what other ones do we got? Convalescent carrier is the next one. And these individuals can transmit while recovering from a disease. And they give the example of cholera, how it has a really long convalescent period that can go on for like months and months and months and months. So that brings me to the question, right? I agree, Ian, about COVID. So if you, like, what do you guys think? There's so many different, like, viewpoints out there, but let's say you're positive for it, and either you're sick or you're not sick, but you're positive. Do you go get retested again and wait till you get a negative test before you put yourself back out in public again? Do you wait the 72 hours after your symptoms have abated and then you feel like you're safe and you go out? If you're exposed and you quarantine yourself for 14 days, then is it okay to go out? Like, what do you guys think? Like, this is, these are the things that keep me up at night.
I have a question about that. So I saw a report and it was talking about how a woman went in, she was tested, it came back negative. She got tested again because she felt like she really had the symptoms. She got tested positive. And then, wait, how did that go? It was like positive, negative, positive. That's what it was. And they said that the second positive had to do with viral shedding. So it was like the dead carcasses, if you will, of the virus, but it still comes back as a positive. So does that mean that that viral shedding is part of that convalescence period? Like, can you still transmit it at that point? Because if that's the case, she had gone 2 weeks or, whatever the recommended quarantine period was after that. But she came back with another positive because of the viral shedding. So I think that with this particular virus, there's just so much unknown that, what do you do?
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the things I read, they suggested if you're positive, then you need two subsequent negatives in a row I guess subsequent and in a row is the same thing, before you should like put yourself back out into the population. And maybe that's why. I know there's been false positives, there's been false negatives, there's, and yeah. And you think you know something, and then you hear something different, and it is really frustrating. Mrs. Brombeck and I were just talking on the phone this morning, and she's like, we just need to get back to normal. Like, this needs to go away, and we just need to get back to normal. Like, when is that going to happen? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know if it is. Like, right. So that's a good question too. Like, is it mutating? Well, what we know about viruses now and how they reproduce, we know that, yeah, bacteria and viruses. And because viruses replicate so quickly, there's a higher chance for them to mutate into another strain. And that's why we get the flu vaccine every year, right? Because the strain changes a little bit every year. That changes the protein coat that's on the virus, and now it's putting off a different antigen that the body doesn't recognize. It doesn't have those antibodies for it, right? So then you get sick again. So that's the nature of the beast, I think. And, I don't know that the antibody titer is going to help us at all because of the mutation rate. It might speak to the old strain, but it's not necessarily going to speak to a new one, right? That's like an antibody test for the flu. Like it just, because the flu is changes every single year. Yeah. And then that's the other question. I was trying to go back through my microbiology book and try to piece together some sort of logical explanation of why some people get so sick that they die, that some people get a little cough and a cold and they're fine, or cough and fever and they're fine. And then other people that are positive have no symptoms whatsoever. I don't know. My boyfriend tested positive for it. He works at Home Depot. He tested positive. He was sick. He was in bed for about a day, coughing, but he didn't really have a high fever. He went to urgent care. They tested him. He was positive. A day or so after that, he was fine. He stayed home the days he needed to stay home in quarantine, and that was that. And, I was exposed to it. I never got sick. I haven't got sick. That's been 3 weeks, almost a month ago, I would say. And I feel fine. So why? Why is it so different from person to person? That's my question. Yeah. The thing with that, Ian, is that it's so frustrating that it takes forever for those tests to come back, because there's so many people getting tested right now that they can't, they're going like hotcakes, right? So you get tested, and then it's a week later before you get your results back. So it's crazy. I know, right? Yep. I agree. There's no answer. I'm just picking your guys' brains and applying what we've learned so far to what's going on in our current situation. Yeah, I thought they had some rapid test things where they can just do it in a couple minutes. Yeah, the vaccinating thing, that's a thing, and whoever that guy was, I can't remember his name now, that started the rumor that vaccinations cause autism, or was it the MMR vaccine or the Tdap vaccine causes autism, which has been proven 100% false. He made it up. And actually, for my doctoral program, we have to do all of these ethics training modules. There's like 30 of them. And that actually came up in one of the training modules. And there is a huge percent, like there was one story about a physician who came up with this like pain treatment idea program for those that are having like joint replacements. And he published it and had all of this data. Well, come to find out, I don't know what raised their suspicions, but they investigated him and found that he had falsified all of the data. And then they got to digging into, he had published like 200 works, and 2% of them they found were completely bogus. Completely bogus.
I think this is where a lot of my frustration lies, is the back and forth, the lack of trust in sourcing, which I've expressed to you on a different occasion. I got very, very aggravated about that, and at one point, one thing is founded, it's proven, yes, that's true. 5 years later, it's disproven. What's good for this person is not good for this person, and so sometimes, yes, Ian, I'm going to touch on it, the being selfish, sometimes it's not necessarily a matter of being selfish. It's the holy crap, this information is so stinking conflicting. Who do you believe? What's best for your body isn't best for, my body. And it's back and forth. And then you have other people's own individual physical issues or barriers or medical issues, so sometimes it's just it's this massive whirlwind of crap that you're just like, I don't know what to believe. Is this true? Is it going to mutate? Okay, now that's unfounded. Now that's disproven. And so it's such a hot, stinking mess right now.
It really is.
Oh, the doctor. So, and then people misinform and mislead. And it's like, well, was it intentional? Was it not intentional? So it's frustrating and discouraging.
It is. And it kind of feeds into that whole situation with research and at big universities where professors are trying to get tenure, they have to do it by getting published. And so there are ulterior motives. Yeah. And so sometimes, I mean, it's already been proven that that's been happening with this COVID thing, like who's getting money from who to say this. And unfortunately, that's just like a political nightmare that, we don't talk about politics or religion in here. No. But, it's just.
And the finger pointing. This person didn't do this person did this, they're responsible, he did this, he didn't do this. And it's like,
yeah, I just try for myself to read multiple sources and find the common threads and kind of pull them out. I mean, at this point, I think that's the best that we can do, to just kind of stay informed, and then the rest of it, I just try to like go out, in one ear and out the other. But
the flat out lying and deception, I think, is the biggest irritation. That's the most frustrating part, I guess, of this whole thing.
I agree. How many agree with Ian?
To hang him?
Yeah. Fear mongering. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Fear mongering, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Alexis. Yes. Let's do that. What? You can't do that? Alexis, that was a joke. No, that was a joke.
So my son's in the Navy, and his ship is one of the only ships that the entire crew was virus free. So they set out in sea and did circles or whatever they did for 76 days or something like that.
Wow.
So my fear is that because they had no contact with the virus, that they will probably be one of the first groups to be immunized with the new vaccine. So I'm hoping that he gets superpowers from it, but at the same time, I'm a little freaked out about it because he's military, so he has no say. He doesn't get to say no. I mean, he signed all of his rights to the US government at the age of 17. Well, I did, but still, it's, you know, I mean, there's so much that we don't know, and there's got to be guinea pigs, so how creepy.
What's the name of that?
Ian, how you crack me up. Alexis, I do agree that this is no time for jokes. I do agree. Are you like just doing shots of bleach, or are you mixing it with something? Or a chaser or something?
Maybe they were onto something with the Tide Pods.
Maybe. Yeah, apple cider vinegar is good for a lot of stuff. I agree with that. Okay, well, I think that's kind of taken us to our break time, our discussion. Is there any other questions that you have about these two chapters? It seems like every time I open this book, I open it and it goes to page 121 with that person like that has condyloma. I don't know, like it's every single time it goes to that page. I need to put a sticky note over it or something.
I think the sticky note's a good idea because Camden kept trying to look at my book, and I'm like, I don't think that's something I want my 5-year-old checking out real close.
I know, it's gross. It's gross. It's not that pretty of a picture. All right, anything else in here that you have questions or comments about before I give you a break? And then we'll come back, we'll start our lab stuff, and then we're gonna do our breakout session for our lab today. That's the plan. That's why we didn't do one to talk about this material. So I just kind of wanted us to have an open discussion. Anything else? Negative ghostwriters? Okay, well, how about we come back, oh, that's perfect timing, at 10 o'clock. All right, and then we'll pick up from there. Okay, see you in a little bit. I'll put it in here. See. Okay, so I'm gonna assign breakout rooms. We're gonna do 5 this time. Okay, so for my room 1, I have Ariana, Gabe, Jacob, Lixie, and Rainey. Who wants to take the leads in there? You're gonna have to have a computer to use like either Microsoft or PowerPoint or something like that. So who wants to take the reins in there? Cricket, 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 cricket. Okay, Ariana, you're at the top. Oh. Okay, well, do you have some sort of application on your iPad? Or I guess you could just, because you're gonna have to find 3 images. So I guess it doesn't have to be PowerPoint, just some way where you can have like 3 images and then be able to share. Can you do that with your iPad? Okay, Ariana, it is. Thank you. All right, group 2, I have Ivana, Jonathan, Rulon, and Tammy. Any volunteers there? Ivana, do you have the ability to be the lead? Okay, thank you. All right, my next group is Adriana, Sarah, Sean, and Tori. Adriana, do you have the capability to be the group leader? I'm just going by the top name now. Thank you. Gotta find out a faster way to do this. Okay, next one, Alexis, Hannah, Jackie, and Robbie. And I see Alexis is on her phone. So Hannah, can you be the group lead in that group? Thank you. And then group 5, we have Alyssa, Andrea, Ian, and Wendy. So Alyssa, can you be the group lead in that group? Thank you. Okay. Let me show you what we're going to do. Okay, so I'm gonna switch. Oh no, I gotta share. Hold on, I'm gonna share. You guys should have access to the sterile principles in the Blackboard. I put them in the, if you click on course content, then it's second from the top underneath the Zoom link so that you can use those as you're doing your activity. Okay, so today we're basically going to do a review of the 15 principles that we have already covered, or sub-principles as it were. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so group 1. Group 1, you're going to have principles, the first 3 little bullet points. So group 1, you'll be doing the sterile field should be created as close as possible. And then if a case is switched, and then checking the chemical indicator. Okay, group 1, that's going to be your shenanigans. Then the next group will start with this one here, instruments. Instruments such as scalpels and blades. Go over that one. Clean, contaminated, and contaminated. And when removing contents from the autoclave. Those will be your 3 for group 2. Everybody with me so far? Group 3 then, we'll start with the inner edge of this heat sealed peel pack. So you'll do that one. The inside of the wrapper, we'll do that one. And then you'll do the one about, it's the circulator's job to go get us stuff. I love that. Okay, next group. I think that brings us to group 4. We'll have the top of the sterile drape table, an item extending or falling below. And once the drapes are placed, we can't move them. That's group 4. And then group 3, you'll have these last 3. My favorite one, when in doubt, throw it out. The integrity of the sterile package, and sterile packages found in storage areas commonly used for storage of non-sterile items should not be used. We need to store sterile stuff separate from a non-sterile stuff. Okay? Questions about your sub-principles that you're going to be doing. Then I'll tell you the rest of the story. Everybody knows what we're doing? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna find 3 images. One image to represent each of your sub-principles, all right? And then what you'll do when you present, or you can divvy it up between 3 people, I don't care, whatever you wanna do, one person show the pictures, a couple people talk about it, but you're just going to indicate the image, talk about the principle and how that image represents it. And then as the participants, you're going to take notes on all of the 15 principles. So when you turn your notes in today, it should have 15 principles listed that we've gone over already. Okay, so this is going to be our review. Let's write them out or type them out because that's going to help us remember them even more. one additional thing. As each of you go in your groups, I'm going to give you a scenario where something is contaminated, and we're going to determine how we would fix that. All right. And if, you know, it'd be good to document that in your notes as well. Okay, that's the plan. Questions about the plan?
So the only thing we have to put for the notes is the actual, let's say, bolded sub principles.
Sure, at a minimum. Yep. Yep, at a minimum, you need to have each of the 15 principles if you want to put some descriptions, if you want to write down some things to help you remember them, because at some point you will be tested on these from memory. So the more we practice them, the more we write them down, the more we study them, the better. So whatever helps you to remember them, okay? And it might be a good idea for the contamination scenario that you write that down and kind of jot down, you know, this is a scenario and this is what we would do to fix it. Because the more we can go through that, the easier it's going to be once we get in the lab and start doing stuff. Okay, any other questions? Alrighty, well, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to find your images-ish, and then I will bring you back. If you have questions, shoot me a text, okay? Okay, I'm shipping you off. Give the others a couple minutes to join us. All righty. How'd you guys do? Good? Your head's nodding? Okay, good. All right, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. We're gonna find out. Right? We'll have at least 3,000 words then for each group by my calculations. Okay, goodness sakes. Okay, group one, that was Ariana's group. And they had the first 3 principles. Okay, are you guys ready?
Yes, I don't think I could screen share, but can I send you the link to the Google Docs and then just like have it up?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just send it over through chat. And that should be the link for that.
Okay, stand by.
Perfect.
Okay. Let me share my screen now. Here we are. Ta-da!
Yay.
Yay.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one is the sterile field should be created as close as possible to the time of use and be monitored at all times. So we have pretty much what it looks like a sterile, like a scrubbed in sterile ST, and then possibly like the circulating nurse next to her, or yeah, her. And yeah, it's just, you know, it looks like they're scrubbed in, they're ready, they seem like they're prepared for what the procedure or whatnot, and they're just pretty much waiting for for the procedure to start. Now the second one, if a case is switched to another OR and the sterile supplies and instruments have already been opened in the sterile field in the originally assigned OR, the sterile field should never be covered with a sterile drape to be moved to the other OR, because it is impossible to move the drape without contaminating the sterile supplies and instrument. Now this is, I mean, Rainey found this, and we're assuming that this is what you don't want to do. I mean, either he could be finished or he is doing the wrong thing. So we haven't really decided on that one yet. And then the third one is the STSR must check the chemical indicator to ensure the instruments have been exposed to the sterilization process. And Jacob found this, and it's just, you know, what we've learned in lab is just looking and checking and making sure that the chemical indicator is inside and correctly indicating whether the box has been properly sterilized or not.
What do you think about this one? Are they checking to see if it's sterile, or where in the process do you think this tray is?
The picture is so small. I think honestly, this is them setting it up. I don't think this is them opening it up.
You know what gives it away?
It looks like they're putting it, I don't know if anybody else wants to answer that.
Looks like they're setting it up because he's not wearing gloves, or
Exactly.
she ain't wearing gloves.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too.
Good call. Good call. There's no gloves on those paws, right? There's no sterile gloves. So I'm hoping that, you know, this is in the processing part and not in the sterile part. Yeah, good call. Good job. Excellent job, Ariana. Thank you, and team. So here's my question. If your case is canceled because the patient ate a Snickers bar, and now you can't do the procedure, and it's canceled, it's canceled, then, but they're actually, let's say that there's a delay in the case. Let's say that there's a delay in the case, 2-hour delay because the patient ate. Can we leave it up, or do we have to break it down? What do we do? 2-hour delay. What do you guys say?
Break it down.
Break it down. What if it was a 30-minute delay?
If I remember correctly, sorry, Jacob, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
If I remember correctly from conversation we had, you said not over an hour. So a 30-minute, but in that 30 minutes, it would have to be constantly monitored the entire time as well.
That's a true story. That's a true story. I would say when we're approaching 2 hours, we're probably pushing it. Yes, you could use the tape force field. Ian, you're absolutely right. The magic tape.
When I was looking for stuff, they actually have a new product out on the market, and it's like a clear sterile cellophane for the back table. It's like a Z form or something like that, and it basically goes and it kind of adheres to the table, and it is approved by AORN. So I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. But it says that in like the tests and everything they've done, that there is in just 30 minutes substantially more bacteria and contaminants on top of it than underneath it.
Very interesting. So is that something that you would put it on sterilely before you like broke out of your gown and gloves?
So like if you knew that your case was being delayed or what have you, I guess they're saying you can put this over it to protect your sterile field for time being. I don't think it's indefinite, but.
So then how do we take that off?
Well, and that's what it was saying. Apparently the way that you put it on is like the way that you take it off as well, which maintains your sterile field underneath. That's what makes it. Let's see if I can find the link. I think I still have it pulled up.
I'll stop sharing this while you're looking for that.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think in my head, like if it just goes to the edge, right? It doesn't drape, it can't drape over the sides, or we've defeated the purpose again. Okay, hold on one sec. Let me copy this.
You know, obviously it's an ad, but just, it was kind of cool.
It's thinking about going there. 1 second, let me see if it pulls it up here. It's being slow. They'll close out other stuff and say, it says the site can't be reached.
Oh.
Here, let me try again. Maybe if I take this little guy off the end. Just think it hard. It's thinking hard. It's got the little thinking wheel. Okay, here we go. All right, let me share. I don't want to be a hog. Ta-da! Okay, so this hangs over the sides.
Yeah, so if you see down there, it says it's designed to comply with ARN standards by helping to prevent breaches in the sterile field. And it's the Z-fold design.
Okay, here, let's, so does this show them like taking it off? Let's see what this video shows.
Yeah,
Makes me twitchy.
Center the cover on the table and unfold to expose the tear tabs. Break the tear tabs on each end.
Oh,
unfold the cover
get it,
over the length
maybe.
of the table.
It breaks
unfold
in the center.
The cover over the width of the table.
Oh.
When positioned correctly, the Z-fold should be centered on the table. When you're ready to remove the cover, 2 non-sterile handlers pull at each end of the table to deploy the Z-fold to separate at the seam. Allow the cover to fall to the floor and dispose.
Okay, when you guys go out there, you tell me if they're using this crap or not. I mean stuff, sorry. I'm being recorded, you gotta be careful. Now I know why surgeons don't like to be recorded. They're like, oh, what if I say something? The search for more money, yeah. You know what I wanna invent? And you guys will find this as you kind of dig into this a little bit more. But when you're doing a procedure and you have like a lot of ringed instruments up on your Maya stand, you like make a roll towel. You take a towel and you roll it and you make like a birdito out of it, and then you put your instruments on it. And that never works very well. Like the instruments get all sloppy, the towel gets floppy, it just never works. I want to invent something that's like a solid roll that just either comes in a peel pack or comes in the pack, and you just take the roll and you put it up there and it holds the instruments in place. That's what I want to invent. It's back here. It's back here somewhere, maybe someday, but anyways, yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. Very good. Okay, so if you have that stuff, you're good to go. If you got the Z stuff. We learned something. I learned something. That was awesome. Okay, very good. Okay, questions about the first 3 principles before we go on to the next ones. Nada? If you were saying something, I wouldn't be able to see you because I don't have the chat. Okay. All right, so our next group was Ivana's group. We are ready for you. Who's gonna share, or do you need hostess with the mostest?
Ivana's gonna share her screen, and the rest of us are going to speak about each bullet point we were assigned.
Okay, so I'm gonna give Ivana hostesses with the mostest. Okay, Ivana, you have rights now, my dear. Don't push leave meeting, okay?
Okay, so the first principle that we got, let me trying to find how I can read it. So in a nutshell, basically what it says is it talks about not using the same scalpel on the skin surface. So here we have an image of the scalpel and different scalpel blades. We want to ensure that we are using a different blade for the epidermis than we are the other tissue, considering that that epidermis is always going to have some type of microorganism on it. We can never fully sterilize the skin. So that scalpel blade, after it's used for that portion, needs to be segregated and only used for that.
Okay, so what you're seeing here is contaminated or instruments that were no longer being used, and I believe this is the back table to where they no longer are going to use the instruments versus the bowl that's near the surgical site where they just hand it off right there. I don't know if you can see there's like a little bit of fluid of I don't know if it's enzymatic solution, just so that the bio burden or the biofilm doesn't, you know, damage the instruments to where they just throw it into the basin right there. And notice that the back, they throw the instruments to the back table so you don't have to turn your back toward the patient, or where you won't have to contaminate your gown, your gloves, and changing out. And if you do, then that would be a time that you would change out of your gown once you turn your back towards the patient.
This one is specifically keeping those instruments separate that are being used on the bowels. We don't want to contaminate any other part of the patient with anything that's been used on the bowels.
Correct.
I like this picture a lot, actually, this one that you have up right now, and that basin up there. Probably wouldn't be enzymatic solution in there because that's something that we wouldn't want to potentially put into a patient's wound. So that's a non-sterile, something that's going to come afterwards. But some sterile water is definitely something that we can put in there and ask the nurse, hey, you know, and we do that a lot of times, like in orthopedic cases, big orthopedic cases, like I leave one of my blue basins in my ring stand and my nurse fills it with sterile water, and I put that right under my Mayo stand. And as things come back from my, you know, if I'm doing a total knee or something, they go right into the basin because they're not going to be used again. So, and I like this basin being up here, and we do it with appies because, you know, as soon as they cut through the appendix, they're going to have the appendix on a Babcock. They're going to have a hemostat attached to that as well. They're going to have the scalpel. And if you bring up your kidney basin, just sit it right there. All of that stuff can just go right into there. So this is a fantastic practice. You know, and it can stay on the back table as well, but when kind of a lot of stuff is coming back to you, you can definitely bring that basin up, and I like this a lot. Good job.
Awesome.
Jonathan?
I'm all talking here, and I'm thinking I'm unmuted. So I was like, so in depth already. Thank you. Anyways, so during this portion, we have when removing contents from the autoclave, the STSR must not touch the edge of the sterilizer with the instrument tray, gown, or gloves. This is one of the first pictures I found, and what actually made me want to select it is the fact that there's a handle. There were other ones I saw where people were kind of just putting their hand in there, and I don't know, it just felt like it'd be safer with the handle, so I hope the one that I deal with is with the handle, because it's easier not to touch the sides, I'm guessing, and keeps you from getting burned.
So here's the thing with the handle, it's not sterile.
Ooh, I see.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah. So the handle is really awesome though, because we don't have to even leave our field, right? The nurse or whoever is in sterile, typically the circulating nurse, can go in there. The handle is usually laying somewhere nearby, hopefully. Get the handle, hook it onto the pan, and then bring it out to you, right? So you don't have to go anywhere near there. So it still really works to our advantage, but it's not a sterile thing.
So and then if we were, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So if we were gonna go get it, would we actually have to pretty much put our hand in without touching the handle?
So the handle is not attached anywhere, right? The pan just has like a little metal lip like on the end of it, and the handle is just sitting on the counter. So you put your, the goodies get put in the pan, they get sterilized, the door gets opened, and sometimes somebody has to do it because it has like a big wheel. Others have like a little foot thing where you just step on it and it goes down hands-free. So if we were getting it, then we would take a towel or something, because the things that you get out are going to be hot, and you just walk over to the sterilizer and you're going to reach in. No handle is going to be there. You're just going to reach in into the pan, get your thing, and take it with you.
How exciting.
Ooh. Yeah. There are flash packs, they call them, and they look like well, they're more like plastic looking material instead of metal, but they do have, it's like a pan and it has a lid that snaps onto it, but they're specifically for the immediate use steam sterilizer. Put your stuff in it, put an indicator, put the lid on, put it in, and cook it. And then the nurse can bring it out, open it, take the lid off, and then you can get the contents from inside. So it could work that way as well. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Awesome. So what if you have a situation where, let's say you have two scalpels, they both have the same exact blade, you use one for the skin, and you accidentally lay that one next to the other one, and then when it's time to cut deep tissue, you don't know which one is which. What do you do?
My guess is ask for a new one altogether.
Ask for a new blade. Just ask for a new blade, switch it out. Yep. You're not going to want to throw it out per se. You just put it in your sharps container and keep it on your field. But then when that new blade comes to your field, it gets added to your count, right? So let's say you had two total and you're like, oh, I don't know which one. Can I get another blade? Nurse is like, sure, opens the blade. And then you're like, okay, add one blade to the count. So now we have 3 when we do our final count. So that's something that we have to do. Yeah. Hold on one second. I'm so sorry. It seems like there's a crisis that I need to attend to. Yeah, so good answer. That's exactly what I would do. Okay, good. Questions about these 3 principles? Thank you, group 2. Good job. Did the pictures kind of help you get it in your brain? I don't know, I'm a visual learner, so I figure we see it, we talk about it, we write it down. At some point, it's got to stick. Okay, these are important. These are important. All right, good job. Okay, group 3. I do too, Tammy. I like the pictures a lot. Is Adriana. And who needs the rights?
I'll be sharing my screen.
Okay. Let me steal it away. Okay. Now, Adriana, I will make you the host. All right, my dear, you are ready to go.
Okay, so the first one we had was the inner edge of a heat-sealed pack is considered the line between sterile and non-sterile. So this isn't the best picture because she's not wearing gloves, but that's kind of the border that you want to maintain is once you grasp it, don't let go, and once you open the peel, you don't want to touch the inside of the sterile pack. And then Tori found this picture of sealing that and notice that they leave enough room to maintain that 1-inch border. And then the next one we had the inside of paper wrappers containing linens or other sterile items is considered sterile except for a 1-inch perimeter around the outside edge of the wrapper. And then this just kind of shows the steps in opening the kit. So number 1, open the outside bag or wrapper. 2, place the kit on a clean work surface. 3, open the kit. So the top flap will open away from you. 4, unfold the sterile paper wrapper on the kit or tray. Always open the flap away from you. Pinch up the paper on the first flap and lay it back, being careful not to touch the inside of the flap. Repeat until all flaps are open. And it says the kit or tray contents are sterile. The paper wrapper around the kit is sterile except for the 1 inch around the edge. So that shows the 1 inch. And then our third one is the circulator is responsible for opening a sterile package using aseptic technique to prevent contamination of the enclosed sterile item. So this shows her opening it, and notice her hands are not touching the inside. And then with our gloved and gowned hands and everything, we take the sterile pack from her, or the contents from her.
Awesome. Couple comments, one about this one, and then if we can look back at the peel pack one in a second. One thing here that we want to make sure that we are not letting the circulator do is reach over our sterile field. So if you are on the other side of your sterile stuff, like this person is, and the circulator is on the other side of your sterile stuff, like this person is, and you have a full back table between the two of you, in order for you to get that item, she is going to have to reach over your field or very close to it. So instead of shouting out, "Don't reach over my sterile field," a suggestion I have is move your body to the end of your table so that you're over air and then go ahead and reach for it, because they will reach over your sterile field to give you stuff. So you can move your body right with a sterile stick. Well, it wouldn't be sterile after you poked her with it, now would it? It'd have to be sterile for you. Yeah, so just, you know, move your body so that they're not reaching over your sterile field. That was my point there. And then if we can look at the other one really quickly, the peel pack one. Yeah, that top one. So typically you're not going to have gloves on when you're opening a peel pack. So this is fine, right? Because the outside of the peel pack is not sterile. And when we open all of our sterile supplies, we're not sterile, nor do we have gloves on. All right, we just have to have our mask on before we start opening anything, hat, you know, scrubs, blah, 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 PPE. But gloves are not part of that, right? Because these things are clean, so we're not at a risk of getting schmutz on our hands. So we don't need exam gloves, probably. But because this isn't a sterile thing, we wouldn't have gloves on. I just wanted to point that out. Yeah, the fingernails, you know, this could be any number of peeps, might not be a surgical person, but I've worked in plenty of places where, you know, nails do look like this for scrubs or scrub nurses or whatever. It's just a best practice not to do that. Yeah. I'm kind of can get up on my soapbox about that stuff. But yeah. All right, so let's see. What if you have a situation where you're opening a peel pack and it tears while you're opening? Like the integrity was good before you started, but it tears when you're opening it. Is that okay? Toss? Sean says toss. Tori says no. You guys have good surgical consciences.
Burn it all.
I don't necessarily feel good about it.
I agree with you. I agree. Yeah, and so there are some degrees of grayness that we could start splitting hairs. Like, where did it tear? Did it tear in the part above where it's sealed, or did it tear into the sealed part? Did the tear touch the item? Like, we can start splitting hairs. And probably the hardest peel packs that you will ever open are the peel packs that you are going to open in the lab. So I am here to tell you, if you can successfully open the peel packs in the lab, you will have no problem opening stuff in surgery at the real place. And I don't know if that has something to do with not steam sterilizing them, that it doesn't like, I don't know if it releases the glue a little bit or it does something to them, but they have such a tendency to tear. But if it does tear, it's the best technique to get another item, right? Get another item. Let me see, Ian. Yeah, you probably should. Yeah, have extra, Tammy, have extra ones ready to go. Yep. And something I have found that we get into in the lab is because there's gonna be a student that's in the scrub tech role, there's gonna be a student in the assistant role, there's gonna be a student in the circulator role, and as the circulator, you're just kind of standing by, like waiting for something to do. Like, this is not a real world thing. In the real world, the circulator is going to be busy. So I always like to remind you guys that when you're opening things, like, we want you, the surg tech, to open everything yourself so that we can see you and evaluate you. So like I said, the circulator's standing there. So let's say you open something, a marking pin, and it goes on the floor. Then your circulator runs and gets another one and gives it to you, and you open it. So then you get into this habit of anytime something falls, you like look to your circulator and they go get it for you or repackage it for you so you can practice again, right? But that's not the way that it goes out there. Out there, if you and your circulator are opening things and something you open hits the floor, like gloves, you're not going to stand there and look at them and wait for them to go get some more gloves, right? You're just gonna go get it yourself. Unless you're scrubbed in and something drops on the floor, then they have to go get it because you're scrubbed in. Otherwise, we can get it ourselves. All right, so I just always like to point that out because sometimes it's different in the lab than it is out there. Okay, good. Questions about any of that? We're gonna move on to our next one. Okay, that was group 3, right? Okay, group 4 is Hannah's group. What do you have for us?
I will be sharing my screen.
Okay. Let me give you that privilege. All right, you're good to go.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the first one we had is the top of a sterile draped table is the only portion that is considered stable. And then in the photo, it pretty much just shows everything that's considered stable. So it's nothing's hanging over the edge, still has a good amount of room.
Are you sharing your screen, or are you supposed
can you
to
not see
share your screen?
Do I have to like press something?
Down at the bottom, there's a little green arrow that says share screen. And if you click that, it should give you some options to choose.
Oh, sweet. Okay, there we go. Now can you see it?
Not yet, no.
What the heck?
Did you click share after you picked what you wanted? Oh, yeah. Okay, we're good.
Cool. Okay. The first one we had is the top of a sterile draped table is the only portion that is considered sterile. So this photo shows everything that's sterile. Nothing's hanging over the edge. No instruments are looking like they're going to fall off the table or anything. So it's good to go. And then this leads into the second one. Any item extending or falling below the table edge is considered non-sterile. So in this photo, it looks like this is like a bag of peel pack wrappers maybe. And so obviously that's not considered sterile because it's hanging over the edge. And then I couldn't find any like bad back table setups. So this one is correct, but if any of the like forceps or Mayo scissors were hanging off the table, then they would no longer be considered stable and we would need to get new ones. And then also if there were any like cords or anything hanging off, those would be considered non-sterile also. And then once the sterile drapes have been placed, they should not be repositioned. So since the only portion of the drapes that are sterile is like the top part, if you're repositioning them and moving them around, it could contaminate the field. And yeah, if anyone else wants to say anything and add on to that last one, you guys can.
Can we look at that middle picture again, Hannah? So this bag thing, let's talk about the bag. So that's not going to be non-sterile stuff inside the bag. This is the bag that comes within our sterile pack or sterile basin or something that we can attach to the table to use as our little trash bag. So you will be surprised when you start setting up the field in the real world how much trash gets, well, even in the lab, how much trash is accumulated just on the little things that you're using in and around. And so it's nice to have a little place to stash those so that you can keep your field nice and tidy. So these will come in the pack. They have a sticky edge. We saw one yesterday. We were talking about it. That was white, a little suture bag that has little sticky tabs. I like to put mine on my Mayo stand, I was saying, but a lot of people do put it on their back table. Inside that bag is going to be sterile. So you can drop trash inside there as you're kind of setting up your field, or intraoperatively if you need to. It's kind of a weird thing. Yeah, but what falls below on the outside, you don't want to touch that. But on the inside, you can put your stuff in there. Okay. That's cool. I know it's weird.
That's cool. That's helpful.
The one thing about putting it on the Mayo stand that some people don't like to do that is because things can have a tendency to fall in there. I don't know how the heck it happens. I actually had an experience where I relieved on a case. I was working like a 2 to 10 shift, and they were in the middle of a abdominal hysterectomy, an open one, and I guess it had been kind of hairy. And so they had been in there for a while, and it was 3 o'clock. It was time for that person to leave, so I went in and relieved them. And they said that they had just done a count. They were just finishing a count as I came in. So I was like, okay. So, because you're supposed to count when you switch search text, a full count. And so we get to the end of the case and I'm ready to do my real full count and there's a scissor missing and I can't find it anywhere. Can't find it. Scissor is gone off the planet. I finally found it in that suture bag. How does a scissor end up inside the suture bag? I don't know. Anyways, it was there. So, note to self, if something has been like wiped off the map and you can't find it, like a suture or something, check your suture bag. Okay. End of story. Questions about this? All right. If you just click stop share, it should be at the top of your screen there, a little red. There you go. Excellent. All right, good job. Okay, our last group to finish up our review. Alyssa, that would be your group. Who is going to share?
I'll share my screen.
Okay. You are the hostess with the mostest.
Okay, so our first principle is if in doubt about the sterility of an item, consider it non-sterile and do not use, aka if in doubt, throw it out. So we have a photo of checking the peel packs. It kind of goes hand in hand with our second principle, the integrity of sterile packages must be checked before opening. So here's an example of a non-sterile package. You can see it has some dirt or dust on the outside, so it must be thrown away, obviously. You check for tears, holes, check the seals so they're not broken, and check the chemical indicators to make sure it is properly sterilized. Nope, nothing. Here's an example of a chemical indicator on an instrument. And then here's another one. Can you see it? Okay. Yep. Chemical indicators should be used externally and internally. Also check for wetness and all of that. Our third principle is sterile packages found in storage areas commonly used for storage of non-sterile items must not be used. Here's a photo of a sterile back room. The package should be opened, and if it contains reusable items, they should be taken to the central sterile processing department for repackaging and sterilization. I think I covered all of them. Oh yeah, here's a photo of a back table. We tried looking for setups that were, quote, wrong. And like you, it was really hard to find. So here's a photo of a back table, and you can see it's kind of close to the wall there. So that's one thing to look out for. Also electrical cords, suction tubes, stuff like that.
Very good. Can you show me the one of the smaller picture of the clamp with the chemical indicator? Yeah, this guy. So see on the outside where there's that red little sticker? Do you guys all see that? It's white, the white little rectangle with the red line. Can you guys all see that?
Yeah.
That. So that isn't a chemical indicator. That is a sticker. So have have you guys ever seen a pricing gun? That's basically what this looks like. And you put the little thing of stickers in it. And then after everything is processed, it's going to get stickered. And the sticker has some important information on there. It has the Julian date. Right, it's going to have that on there. It's going to have that it was sterilized. It's going to have the autoclave number where it was sterilized. So let's say if it's a big sterile processing department and they have 10 big autoclaves, they're numbered 1 through 10. If it was sterilized in number 5, it's going to have 5 on there. And then it's also going to have what load of the day is it. So let's say it was in sterilizer 5 and this is the 6th load that they've ran in there, it's going to say 6. So this is important information. The reason I'm belaboring this is because this little sticker is really important to sterile processing department. Let's say you pull this package and you're going to use it for your case and you notice a big water stain on the back. Or it looks like there's wetness inside of the plastic of the package. Something is weird with it besides a hole got poked in it, because processing is that happens, right? But if it looks like something that could be a sterilization issue, they're gonna want this sticker, okay? And the reason why is because when they put that 6th load in sterilizer 5, they made a log of every single item that was sterilized in that sterilizer in that load. So they can take this sticker, they can get that information, and they can pull other items off the shelf that were sterilized in that same load, and they can check them. It also helps them to know what sterilizer it was. So if you have a problem with something from processing, when you take it back, you need to take that sticker or take the package that has the sticker on it or whatever the case may be. Okay, that's an important telling point for them and tracking mechanism. Okay. Was there something else I was gonna say? Questions about any of that? So in and around the operating room department, there's going to be a sterile storage like that beautiful one that Alyssa showed us. Yeah, and there's also going to be a non-sterile storage. So they're going to be separated. The non-sterile stuff that we still use in surgery sometimes, like cast padding, casting material, specimen cups, I don't know, those kinds of things, they're going to be in a separate non-sterile storage, and you don't want to mix the two. Even in the operating room, they're going to have cabinets and they're going to have sterile stuff in them. You don't want to stick non-sterile stuff in a cabinet in the operating room where they're non-sterile stuff where there's sterile stuff. So you want to keep that stuff separate. Okay. I think that's all I have. Awesome. Perfect. Let's see. What about a scenario there? Let's see. Think of something on the fly. So what if you have a pair of scissors, let's say, that's peel packed up separately, and while you're sorting through your stuff that you're going to open for your case, it falls onto the floor. But it's just a hold item. So you set it to the side. It doesn't get used during surgery. So what do you do with that scissor that fell on the floor? You put it back into circulation. Right. It has to go to processing. So you can just pop it out of the package and send it with the rest of your dirty stuff. That's perfectly fine. when it does fall on the floor, you want to look at the package integrity again. You just want to make sure that it didn't get a hole, or, you know, there wasn't water on the floor from when they mopped it and now it's wet on the package, because if that's the case, you wouldn't want to use it at all. Okay? So, questions about any of that stuff? Let me see what Rainey says. Right. So it's not going to count towards your count. That's absolutely right. If it's just an available and it's hanging out just kind of on the side on a counter somewhere, and then afterwards it doesn't get used, at this point, wound is closed, dressed, patient is probably gone by the time that you're gathering your stuff to take to processing. So then you can just grab that scissor, pop it open, toss it in the tray, and take it all to processing. Yep, great question. Other questions? Okay, let's take a little break, maybe 5 minutes, and then I'll cue up the Kahoot. Okay? All right, good. Good job. Good review.
Sounds like a hoot.
It will be a hoot, Jonathan. It'll be a Kahoot. Oh. Anybody else still trying to jump in? All right, we're gonna get going here. All right, first one on the list. Which of the following is not considered a determinant? Yes. Outbreaks of disease. Everything else are considered determinants. Socioeconomic status, physical environment, and behaviors. These diseases are ever present in a region and impact the small population. Yes, an endemic. Very good. A disease that occurs with a greater than normal incidence of reported cases. An epidemic, yes. Good job. Which of the following is not considered an important epidemic disease? Oh, the Spanish flu. Yeah, the Spanish flu is pandemic. That's why. That's why it's not considered the thing here is epidemic. It is important, but it was considered a pandemic. An outbreak of this type of disease is considered a worldwide event. Yes, yes, it's a household word now, huh? This refers to the degree of pathogenicity and the severity of a disease process. Virulence. Yep, good job. This form of a disease is often fatal. It's often fatal. Disseminated. Yep, disseminated is our answer. That means it's like widespread, right? If you disseminate information, that means you're spreading it around. It also increases the chance of mutation, right? So that could increase its virulence. Category of disease carrier that is recovered but carries the pathogen indefinitely. Oh, we didn't finish our conversation about that and kind of stopped with convalescent, but one of those categories of carriers is active carrier. And an active carrier has recovered but carries it forever. And then the other one is passive. They harbor it, but they've never had it. Which of the following is not a fomite? Yes, cattle. Fomites are considered things that aren't alive, but they help with the spread of disease. But they're not living. Method of transmission that includes touching, sneezing, body fluids, and sharp injuries. Direct contact. Yes, that is it. Very good. Which of the following is not a portal of entry? Is not a portal of entry. You are correct. The hostess. Hostess with the mostest. We have portals of entry. That's for sure. Which of the following is a type of bacterial invasion that causes lysis of erythrocytes? Yeah, hemolysin. We can almost kind of pick that out, right? Just by breaking apart the term there. Good job. The neurotoxin secreted by Clostridium botulinum causes what? Yes, muscle paralysis. That's why Botox works. Rainy. Cytopathic effects that cause cell death are called what? Yes, very good. Non-cytocidal cause damage, but not death. They harm, but they don't kill. Skin, mucous membranes, phagocytes, inflammation, and fever are examples of? Yes, non-specific host defenses. Remember, those are some of our, like our skin, our mucous membranes, those are our innate defenses, the ones that we're born with. But all of these non-specific defenses, they don't differentiate between invaders. They just help to attack them all, not like the antibodies, right? Those are specific immunity. Which classification of protozoa are non-motile and very slow moving? Sounds like me in the morning. Yes, sporozoans. Sporozoans sound like some type of gladiator microbe. A semi-rigid thin film that surrounds flagellates and gives them a definite shape. A pellicle. Yes, a pellicle. I don't have much else to say about that. Like Forrest Gump. Cavities in the cytoplasm of the cell that collect and expel water to prevent cell lysis. Yes, the vacuoles expel the water. Which of the following is not an example of rickettsia? Yes, ectoparasites. Good job. This group of parasites includes helminths, ectoparasites, and arthropods. Yes, metazoa, multicellular parasites. Good diet plan. I need one after COVID quarantine. Which one of the following is not an example of an ectoparasite? Yes, that is correct. We got our fleas, our mites, our flies, our ticks, our fleas, all that fun stuff. Those are ectoparasites. Type of parasite that is capable of living on a host or independently. They're like the meh of parasites. Facultative. Remember, if we have any type of facultative microbe, they're like, meh, I don't care, one way or the other, with air, without air, with a host, without a host. Which of the following is not an example of parasitic asexual reproduction? Conjugation. Remember, conjugation means that the two have to come into contact with each other, right? Like we talked about bacterial conjugation, where they use the little F pilus, right? Sounds graphic. Term that means containing both male and female reproductive organs.